All right, you all good? Okay, perfect. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of council for Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. We'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the Treaty 8 First Nations territory in the long-standing presence of the elders and ancestors of Treaty 8. Through this acknowledgement, we extend recognition and respect to the BC Treaty 8 First Nations and all those who call the Peace Country home. I'd like to move to adoption of agenda. I recommend that council adopts the agenda. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rattle. Any discussion? Councillor Rattle?
Just a quick tiny one under 13.1, which is page 6 of this agenda. It's just office upgrade funding versus office park upgrade funding. That's all, just a minor adjustment.
Okay, if you could please make that note,
Yep.
Mr. Anderson, that'd be
On
wonderful.
page 6, was it?
6 of the agenda, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. I was going to make that correction under the minutes as well, so that works really, really well. Okay, any other discussion? I have another note, but I'll make it under the minutes, Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
All those in favor? And that is unanimous and carried. Item number 4, recommendation that council adopts the minutes from October 16th, 2024. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Whittle. Thank you so much. On top of the correction that was made by Councillor Ravel, I also noticed that under 13.2, there was no of the minutes, under 13.2 of the minutes, there was no recommendation as towards the direction from council regarding the old-fashioned Christmas. There's no motion or anything. I'm assuming council must have given some direction. So if we could just maybe put a line in there stating what
What the direction was?
Yeah.
I believe, and I could check on that, but it was to ask council if they wanted to change anything, and they said, I got no direction to say no, but just direction to staff to proceed as per last year.
Yeah, so really just kind of putting that in there would be super handy.
Okay, I could do that.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Just because right now it's currently blank, and I was like, no, we probably would have said something. We're chatty people, so. A whole lot of somethings normally, exactly. Okay.
I think I jumped ahead, sorry.
No worries.
Just kidding.
Any other notes from the minutes for October 16th? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of adopting the October 16th minutes with corrections? Thank you, and that's carried. Awesome. Introduction of late items, we have none. As said, the late item for tonight is going to be, you have to move to the 20th agenda. Item number 6, public hearings, none. Delegations, none. Unfinished business and business arising from the minutes, none. Moving on to new business, 9.1.
That council authorizes the Peace River Regional District to apply for, receive, and manage the Disaster Resilience and Innovation Fund, or DRIF, program, or the Disaster Risk Reduction Climate Action Adaptation, DR-CA, grant program on behalf of the Village of Pouce Coupe.
Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Whittle. Thank you very much. Discussion? Councillor Ravel.
So this is just applying for the grants, and then the RD is going to host this with other municipalities, because we're looking at mapping different risk factors for disasters and mitigating those factors, and it's just a good project overall, hey?
Yeah, and it's a really cool opportunity for us to take part in this whole disaster resilience and drift funding. And they don't require anything from us other than us just willing to be taking part. So, it'd be cool to, right? Who can say no to free things?
Obviously, it's not taking our staff time.
It's not taking any staff time, nothing, no.
It benefits the village, so,
But I get,
Yeah.
the only staff time is for a staff person, the applicable staff person to participate in the group discussion in putting this together.
Yes, and the applicable part, is that our fire chief, is it not?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah, so. And
Or if anyone else in council wanted to sit on it, they could, for that matter.
And that's something that our fire chief is really already doing with our fire agreement with Area D. We're always quite often a part of those conversations, so it's just, yeah. Perfect. Any other discussion? All right, so the recommendation is that we authorize, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so all those in favor? And that is carried. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, 9.2. Village flag policy. So recommendation that the council adopts the village flag policy as presented. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Whittle, thank you. So this is regarding that we didn't have a flag policy, and again, we saw a bit of an issue with that on September 30th for National Truth and Reconciliation Day. Prior to now, it was really on the back of the CAO to kind of coordinate people coming in and making sure that that's done. With the staff changes that we had, because that person wasn't here to kind of make that call, and I was unaware of us not having a policy in place. Sadly, our flags did not make it half-mast. So this is just to really make sure that there is a policy there, and that going forward, this is something that is automatic and just isn't put on the back burner, because recognizing those days is incredibly important to the community. And Councillor Whittle?
So just looking at this, the only bit of concern I have, and I think it's something that could easily be addressed in the policy, or even just with time management, is impact for the budget. Flags are to be lowered or raised on statutory holidays. Is there anything preventing us from the day before the last business day? So the statutory holidays, the Monday, we lower it on Friday, and then we bring it back up on Tuesday. Because at a cost of, call-up fee for staff at $300 is rather pricey for 5 minutes of work.
Understandable, and every local government that does wrestle with that one. It's usually union, or it's usually staff type work. Mostly people have unions that do that, but this policy, it's usually the earliest you want to go is the day before. Yeah. So if it's a Monday, you would have to come in on Sunday. To lower them on a Friday for an event that's going to happen 3 days ahead probably wouldn't be right. It should be, the policy is usually, actually the policy is sunrise to sunset of the same day. We're suggesting the day before they just lower them down, and then just leave them down until the next business day, and then bring them back up. So there's not 2 call-outs in one day.
It's just one, yeah.
We've got a really good working relationship with the union, and we've had our fire chief do it a couple of times as well. So it will fall on a couple staff holidays, but there are other times when the federal government asks to lower them on a regular day. On a Wednesday.
Somebody important dies.
National Reconciliation Day might be on a Wednesday or something. Those sorts of things. So it's only a couple holidays that are staff holidays where it is affected. So it is a bit of a cost should we do that, but it's not overwhelming, I guess you could say.
And I don't think it will be an additional cost, because this is something that has been going on for quite some time already. There was just no policy put in place.
That's right.
So normally, if the staff was on the Monday, the person would automatically get that call-out fee. It's just there was no policy there stating that. So there would actually be no additional cost. This is a cost that we've already been taking on as a village for years.
That's exactly right.
Councillor Ravel?
I find it very specific in a lot of ways. It's general in other ways and specific in other ways. Do we need to get to this level of detail in this policy? And I'm wondering about the implications. As member opposite has mentioned, the union call-up fee of $300, but then also it's obviously a flag must be maintained in good condition. If it's damaged, it should be replaced. It gets into a lot of specifics here, and I don't think we really need to get that deep into detail, because those are standard flag. There are flag codes. There are already codes in regards to the national and provincial flags. And we would probably just follow those precedents that have been set. Sunrise to sunset and less illuminated at night makes sense, of course. That's part of flag codes. RRs illuminated at night. The positioning of flags, that's already coming from the flag code. A lot of this stuff would already be contained in other things. I think the main thing is who can lower the flag and when should it be lowered is kind of the main question. I don't think we need to have all the detail that's already covered in other flag codes, if I may, because that's already a standard thing that we already have to adhere to. And then the prohibitions piece, number 7, for no political, religious, commercial flags, flags representing individual or divisive causes that cause conflict with the inclusive values, it gets into that might pose very difficult, right? Because, you know, what's to consider a political cause? Like, what if there's, you know, we do the days where we light up the buildings in different colors, right? And maybe one time there's something to do with, say, cancer research that's on a flag. Just a very random example. I don't know if that's done, but obviously we wouldn't display something that's egregious, right? Like that's a regularly assumed thing. I don't think this policy requires the level of specificity that is being presented. I think simply the goal is to just say, okay, who decides when the flag is lowered? I think that's all it should be regarding, and we leave it there. We don't touch on the flag code pieces, which are already precedents from our national and provincial governments. And obviously, if there's something egregious, we're not displaying it anyways. I don't think we need a, because that it gets into very muddy waters.
Well, just a sort of response to your comment there, Councillor Ravel. So with this, like knowing that a lot of these flag maintenance, the prohibitions, or I can never say that darn word, you know, you're right, a lot of that is already in the flag protocol, so adding it here doesn't really have any effect because it's sort of already there. It's already been added and written up by staff, so it doesn't involve any more staff time. And then really it's by it covering both, because we're already expected to meet those flag policies by the federal government, it would make sense to have them in here though, because that is an expectation of the local government, right? And so, you know, having them listed is just making sure that we are following the federal expectation. Councillor Whittle?
Yeah, I see the point on both sides of things. What I do like about this though, with having it here, is it is available for quick reference, right? So you're not sitting there looking up flag code 123765, whatever it is, and trying to find it. It's already here for quick reference, so that's definitely like an advantage to having it here. The policy itself looks fine. Under the prohibitions though, that I know that's open to a lot of interpretation based off people's beliefs, or right. So that's where, yeah,
Mr. Anderson?
That's the only part I have. And it's not necessarily an issue with it. I like the way it is. It's just it's open to interpretation for, especially on the no political, religious, or commercial. So I think the other thing would be to maybe flesh out is what flags is council comfortable with, and this could be an offline or discussion further on down the road. Because depending on your political beliefs or your views, your LGBTQ flags could be considered political, right, and anti-religious to some people, right? Even your Métis flag can be considered political, right? First Nations flags could be considered political depending on where you sit in your views. So, right, and then you could look at something if, say, we were to fly the Girl Guides flag, because we change our colors to the Girl Guides flag. Mm-hmm. That could potentially be commercial, right, because they are an entity, right? So it's opened up to a bit of interpretation. So I think the other one would be potentially look at flags that are under this policy, and it's got to be reviewed every 5 years, so every council should look at it. Mm-hmm. But maybe look at adding exemption flags or flags that this council is comfortable with.
I think I'm going to refer to Mr. Anderson just so he can kind of talk a little bit more about number 7, the prohibition. So is that coming directly from the federal flag?
Not necessarily, but
okay.
we looked at a number of different flag policies, and there was, like, for example, City of Dawson Creek is pages and pages and pages there.
Really?
Oh yes, it's very, very detailed. This is pretty, for flag policies that we expected, this was a lot longer. I had it longer, and I had staff go through it, and they ended up taking it. So you don't need this, you don't need this, and we had some good discussion, but in the end I agreed with them. The prohibitions, these are just maybe we could put in the terms, for example of, you know, because you might be getting a lot of requests. You may not, maybe you haven't had any requests, but this might give you some guidelines as to what you can kind of consider. Because if they're all on one-offs, there's gonna be a lot of people coming to you saying, well, you flew theirs, why aren't you flying mine? So you gotta be really careful. So this just gives you some broad guidelines, that's all it is. If we pulled it out of there, it's not a deal breaker, but it just kind of, these are just kind of wordings that we found from other flag policies that we thought might be considered.
Councillor Rabble?
The other piece with number 7 for prohibitions is it's kind of a no offense intended, it's a circular, it could be viewed as a circular reasoning because it's saying don't display bad stuff, but council would determine what bad stuff is. So then we just don't display bad stuff, right? Because it would be kind of an assessment. I don't see that as necessary. I think what the big piece is sure, who decides when a flag is flown at half-mast? I don't think we need to get into the codes that are already covering these other flags, and then that's where I think it should sit. Obviously, we should have respect for these flags and what they represent and all those who have fought and died for them. And then what happens though, let's say if a dignitary, like hypothetically, an ambassador to another country or realm comes, I know, but let's say somebody comes, technically there's a whole other flag thing for that, and we can't compete with the Canadian flag, and we get down a massive rabbit hole. There are entire studies of flags, flying flags, ceremonial rituals and whatnot. I would leave that be. It's basically who decides when the flag is flown at half-mast. It's a standardly acceptable thing that we fly a Canadian flag or provincial flag and a municipal flag. And then on occasion, maybe a special flag for a special declared month of this and month of that, right? Anyways, I appreciate the specificity. I don't think it needs to go to this level. I think we dial it back to when do we fly at half-mast and leave it there.
So originally, and I don't disagree, originally I had an appendix on here because if you go to the federal provincial guidelines,
It's long.
you're going to be lowering the flags more than you think, because if it's a death of a prime minister, if it's a member of state, if it's a premier, they lower their, and then if you're going to say you're going to follow provincial and federal guidelines, you got to go to the website, and so instead of having this appendix, lowering them and raising and lowering them, you have to go to the website. And if we say that we're going to follow those guidelines, then there will be a number of times we'll be lowering it down. If we follow the federal.
So having it this way kind of, gives a bit more leniency without us having to lower it for every occasion that's listed on the federal
Yes,
site.
absolutely. So it just, and this was a good conversation with staff, and they convinced me to say you don't need to put all that in there because it's just, you don't need it. You've already got it. So, but maybe what I can do, if you feel you don't want to do anything with it tonight, I could, come back with some of your, maybe pare it down even more, if I'm hearing you correctly, or.
Well, what I'm getting from the majority of this council is the only, the big sticker is number 7, the prohibitions, just a bit of concern that that's going to get a bit into.
I guess, sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
The other way around that for number 7 is a simple little clause, or is otherwise authorized by council.
Well, yeah, that is.
Right, because
That's
then
what we do, yeah.
Because then it gives us, because then there's the standard one, so if somebody requests something that, is gonna be a flat out no, right? Staff can be like, no, that's offensive because of this, or if we do get something that comes in, then at least comes to council, and then it's ultimately our decision to, because we might wanna, partner with a special interest group, and we might wanna fly their flag for, an event or something like that, right? So.
This is my last comment on it, because we should move. But it's kind of that thing of when there's a regular thing, like the month of this, the month of that, so be it, it's a council decision. But then there's the emergency things, right? When there's a sudden death of some significant person and or something really tragic happens, we go, okay, who technically has the authority? Well, it would rest with the CEO and mayor probably, right? In an emergency situation. So I think those, just to cover that, okay, who actually has the authority to do that? I think that's the only question we really need to answer. Because it kind of gets into these things, well, do every day we raise the flag and lower the flag? Are they illuminated? Do we need to invest in illumination devices now? Which makes sense, right? But are we raising and lowering the flags every day? How are they technically illuminated? And is it at every location? What if we have flags now at the park for an event? Is that covered by this policy? Who determines if that's permissible? Is that council? Sorry, it goes down a rabbit hole, right? That's why the flag policies end up being thick as heck, because they try to find a remedy every possible situation. And I think we avoid that because it's a big rabbit hole.
So what I'm hearing from council is, I think at this point in time, we should table it for now to bring it back.
Sure.
We'll let Mr. Anderson take a couple more looks and see if there's, I think they've made some really great suggestions for number 7, and maybe just look into some of the concerns that were brought forward. And then you're not gonna be here on the 20th, so I'm not too sure. It's gonna have to be
Well, we haven't had a flag policy for how many years?
ever.
Ever.
32,
So we do need a flag policy.
We do, yes.
Because you need some guidance on that, because if you don't, in the absence of that, staff are looking at each other, what do we do?
Yeah.
So this way,
And that's
this
exactly
is
what
what this policy
happened.
does.
Yeah.
It just gives people guidance on what you should be looking at. Bear in mind that these prohibitions are purely council's decisions. They go on one-offs. They're still gonna get those requests. And so this just gives you broad guidelines. If you think that it's too restrictive or it's not restrictive enough, we can certainly look at different language to give you the wiggle room to get through that.
So, are we still moving in the direction, gentlemen, of kind of tabling this for now and looking at it again on the meeting of the 20th? I will note that sadly Mr. Anderson will not be here to answer any questions or concerns, but I'll try to get him to give me the lowdown before he leaves.
And if it's not the 20th, I can get you to we'll see how it goes. Like I say, we haven't had one for a long time, but we'll get you one.
Is council comfortable with that? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put the motion on the floor that we table item 9.2. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Ravel. Any discussion regarding the tabling? All those in favor? And that is passed. Yes?
Since we're on the topic of flags, do we need a motion for staff to lower the flag for Remembrance Day? Since we don't have a flag policy.
That's a good one.
I was just thinking that too.
That actually is a very good point, because we've been doing it ad hoc up until now. So
Yeah.
So we'll make the motion that we direct staff to lower the flag for Canada Day. For Remembrance Day in honor of the veterans, and
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Ravel. Thank you. Good catch. Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor? And that is passed. Okay. Moving on to 9.3.
So 2024 Mental Health and Addiction Symposium. Recommendation that council provide direction on NCLGA Mental Health and Addictions Accord endorsement.
So we'll start with that one because there's 2 recommendations. So can I get a seconder on the first recommendation? Seconded by Councillor Ravel. Thank you. Okay. And discussion. Councillor Ravel?
So this Addictions Accord, so NCLGA is our local government association for the North. This accord is to compel, I'm assuming, the province to look at these principles and actions.
So as NCLGA members, they have reached out to all of their membering municipalities that are part of the NCLGA board and the association, and they're bringing forward this accord. So what they are looking for is if this council agrees with the concerns that are brought forward, that will be being brought forward to the provincial government under the principles, so that's collaboration and partnership, recognition of complexities facing Indigenous communities, recognition of complexities facing local government, and sort of all those different stigmas within harm reduction. If this council supports this accord, what they would like to do is then have us sign as a name, title, and agency as a representative of our local government. And then we would be part of the local NCLGA members that are bringing this forward to the province to basically have them figure something out, because what's happening right now is not working. And that's basically what this is stating, is what's happening right now is not working. And so in conclusion, at the very bottom there, it says, in signing this mental health and addictions accord, we affirm our dedication to working collaboratively and advocating for positive change to address the mental health and addictions crisis in central and northern British Columbia. We support this accord as a living document with flexibilities to evolve into the future, and we pledge to uphold the principles of collaboration, cultural safety, equity, and prevention as we work towards a future where residents can thrive in body, mind, and spirit. And so, especially with a lot of the issues we are having in northern British Columbia, many of our residents do not have any access to mental health supports. They are being shipped out currently to Prince George. When Prince George is full, which is quite often, they're then being sent to Kamloops or as far as Vancouver. What is happening as well is that there's large wait lists. So what's going on is that these people are going down there, they're having mental health issues that are stemming past a certain amount of time. They're actually being released and sent back home to do home care. We do not have any home care, so then what the expectation is that then they need to find ways to get back and forth to Prince George to receive therapy. Many of the people that are suffering with mental health do live in what is the word I'm looking for?
Rural and remote.
No, vulnerable situations. Many of them are homeless. So what's happening is that when they're being sent home to do home care, they are ending back up on the street, and then they're never able to receive the rest of their care. This has been a constant ongoing issue, and we've seen a huge impact of it in our local communities. And so basically NCLGA has heard from many communities in the area with many of these concerns. We have a lot of people on our streets that are suffering with mental health problems that are leading to addiction. And so this is giving us an opportunity to not only advocate for those vulnerable people, but to advocate for our community members that are feeling at risk in the community as well. So that's what this is about. Mr. Anderson.
And I guess.
I hope I covered everything.
You did. You did a wonderful job. Actually, very, very, very good. You did your homework. But,
Thank you. I was reading a lot.
But basically, this group, as near as I can tell, and you know more about it than I do, and that's why the recommendation is wide open. We as staff are just, this is coming from members of the NCLGA, so that's why it's being presented by the mayor. But there's striking numbers.
Yeah.
So this is a collaborative with all the municipalities that you can go to the ministry and you can lobby your concerns in a collective voice, and you have way more weight. So.
Yeah. Councillor Rabble?
I'm all for folks. I'm all for healthcare helping people heal, right? However, I find that this is framed through various value assignments that are kind of the buzzwords of the day, and I'm wondering what weight that's going to hold in the long term. I'm not sure what it's compelling the province to do. I'm not sure, what tangible results will come from this, because I get the spirit of such a accord. However, I'm wondering what the results on the ground will be. I get it, it's saying let's work together, let's observe all these conditions through all these different frameworks and viewpoints and lenses and perspectives and whatnot. But then at the end of the day, I'm wondering, okay, what does that mean on the ground, right? It's another commitment to us working collaboratively together, which everyone's already trying to do. So I don't mean to sound jaded in regards to it, it's just, how does this move things forward? That's my honest answer. More questions, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a response to that, but you also raised your hand, Mr. Stafford. Would you like to speak?
Sure. Mental health and addictions has been a priority for the governments of the day for probably at least the past two governments that I can remember of. One of the things that is happening that is quite problematic in communities is recruiting professionals with those types of skills in communities is really hard. And it's really hard for a number of reasons. One of those reasons being housing, another reason is social isolation, things of that nature. It's a myriad of reasons why it is hard to recruit to smaller communities. What I think, in my opinion, they're hoping to achieve with this is to actually get communities on board to be part of the solution and to actually have partners in the community they can speak to when they get those big things. You know what? I came to this community, I was there for 6 months, I didn't feel welcome, I couldn't find permanent accommodations, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. Because the province can do a lot of things in terms of giving people incentives, in terms of the licensing process, in terms of this, but at the end of the day, if the communities are not partnering with the province, with the healthcare professionals, with professionals, period, in that, then we will see no results. So what I think they're trying to do is they're trying to actually get a process in place where there is more of a community collaboration rather than this being just the province's problem. The province is still responsible, but what they're looking for is partners to push some of these initiatives forward to help.
And some of this actually, Mr. Stavro basically said what I was going to say as well. So Northwinds Wellness Center is a large part of this as well. They've been working very, very closely with the NCLGA board to kind of create this accord to be recognized by all of the central and northern governments. And I cannot speak on behalf of the PRRD board, but I know the PRRD board is sending representatives up to take part in the discussion as well, due to the collaboration and the commitment that they've already made with Northwinds and Pooskoopi. You know, like, we've been working with them. We've helped lobby for extra money at the UBCM. That was, you know, a huge focus for us and the PRRD, and this is sort of recognizing that as well. So it's working in partnership with you know, as Mr. Stavro stated, the province, Northern Health, and then getting those communities involved, because, you know, I know Northwind's directors had been advocating for that extra $4 million for well over a year. And it took us and the PRRD collaborating and lobbying the government at UBCM and really putting a face and a push to it to get that $4 million in. And the success story is that the province felt that they were unaware of this issue, and as soon as they had become aware of it, they were more than willing to fill that $4 million gap. So it's sort of ending that unaware piece and making it so that we are all in this collaboratively. This is a provincial issue, but it's also a local issue as well. And it's just working as a unit to elevate those voices. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, and Pooskoopi's well positioned for this accord, having membership at this table, just by virtue of the fact that you have the very mental health and addiction centers situated within your boundaries. And to be at that table is probably essential, because a lot of these people that are signing this don't have the facility that you have. I'm sure the city of Dawson Creek will be signing on this as well, because the hospital there is the mental health and psychiatric hub for Northern Health for the Northeast. So they will definitely be, I'm sure they will be. Now, in answer to Councillor Rattle's maybe concerns, which are valid, this is an accord, which is a very flexible document. It speaks to flexibility moving forward. This may take another life unto itself as it flushes itself out. But in the first meeting of everyone will be this symposium that's coming up. So this is all brand new. A couple of iterations of this accord have been floated around by the looks of the correspondence. I'm not sure they were looking for input, and this is kind of the final document they ended up with, so I don't know who guys is seeing it now. But this has been floating around for a while, as you indicated, Mayor. So I think Northern Health is going to be at this table because they're including, which I feel good about.
Yes, Toronto should be there.
Yeah, so it isn't only just municipalities getting together to throw darts at a health authority, which I think was part of the concern. But having the door open to health authorities and other agencies that are committed to this, to seeing it work is a positive thing. So I think this is a good thing for everyone, understanding that we're gonna have to, it's gonna change over time. It will.
But we'll be at the table
You'll
with
be at
a
the
voice
table
for when it does
yes.
change. Where if we don't sign on, we are removing ourselves from the table. Where if there are any changes to it, we will actually get a voice in it. My concern is, you know, very, very much so that if council does decide to go in the direction of not supporting this, we will be one of the only local governments not at this table. And then we're not really going to have much impact on it in that sense as well. Yes, Mr. Stavro.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that in my previous experience working in health in northern communities, one of the things that we saw a lot is that success in these type of programs, community engagement and active community engagement through accords and through participations in this type of tables was something that was key ingredient to moving agendas forward. I don't think we can ask organizations like Northern Health or even the provincial government to do something for the people in our communities if we're not willing to do it. So I think that I think it's a wise decision that this accord has been brought forward.
Councilor Little?
I'm gonna make a motion here. That council endorses the NCLGA mental health and addiction.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Discussion regarding the motion? Councilor Rabble?
I am understanding and appreciative of the core of what this is getting at, is saying there are a multitude of health crises and complexities that are happening, especially around addictions and mental health, and we have to do something about it. But there's an attempt with this accord in certain portions to frame the solutions in a certain way in regards to value assignments. And I've in conversations with members of the community, I know that some would agree with it, some wouldn't, and it's kind of the issue of the day, and it's attempting to approach an issue of the day with the understanding of the day, right? And that will pivot over time because society is a project, and we're always looking for the next thing to resolve, right? And once one thing's resolved, we're on to the next thing, right? We've banished cholera, we've banished, you know, a whole bunch of diseases of the past, and now we're working on this project, right? We're framing it in the same, or in ways now that, you know, we framed it other ways. Anyways, I understand where you're coming from. I agree with the core purpose of this. The other pieces that are added onto it, I have my concerns and reservations with. And I don't mean that as the whole document. Like it's always good to work together. It's always good to try to make things work for everyone involved. But for example, the Chetwynd Hospital's on diversion right now. That's the whole community. The whole community doesn't have emergency medical services right now. That's horrific, right? And so there are bigger issues at play, right? So that's where I'll leave it. But you know, I agree with the core.
Okay. Well, and I agree with your statement about the Chetwynd Hospital. I do also understand that a large part of the issues we are having in employee retention when it comes to Northern Health is actually attached to the stigma that has been attached to those struggling from mental health and addiction. And a lot of the things that we've seen in the news recently, you know, and that is having an impact on us being able to get people to move up north and work here. And so you know, by working with the government to offer more mental health and addiction supports, which is what this document is really aiming for, could not only have a benefit to those in a vulnerable situation, but could actually have a benefit to the community overall.
And my last piece here is, well, actually, I don't see where it mentions recruitment and retention of healthcare professionals. I don't see where it mentions investments in facilities and doctors' offices, investment in community recreation to attract people. And obviously that's something we're working on. That isn't mentioned here. Like they're picking certain facets that are a part of it, but this is such a massive and complex issue, and hopefully that can be brought into it too.
Yeah.
So my hope in this is the start of a lot of conversations, or it's the middle of a lot of conversations, because there's extremely complicated issues at play here, right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other?
Just one last point that I just, and good dialogue. This is purely looking at the mental health and addictions side of health at this point. It's not dealing with emergency room closures, it's not dealing with retention or recruitment and retention. This is mental health and addictions, and some of what all the municipalities are seeing with the sudden change of demographics coming in and out of their city and tent cities and all of the things that come out of that municipalities are having to deal with. So this is a collective voice to try and do some brainstorming to help with the situation of mental health and addictions only for now. Whether this goes beyond that, I don't know, and that's something that the village could lobby as you, but you need a voice at the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Mr. Pepper.
One more thing, Mayor. Actually, this sounds very familiar to what Alberta very recently did, as recent as a couple of years ago. One of the things the government of Alberta is now working is they're building 13 facilities across the province for the purposes of all-encompassing addictions recovery and mental health treatment. So basically, it's the full 9 yards. But where that started is exactly at these types of tables, where accords started, conversations started in communities, municipalities were brought in through the process, and that's how the province decided to go down to where they're making that investment right now in these facilities. So I see this as a really good step. I also see this as a step that will actually deplug our healthcare system, in terms of those emergency rooms and those long wait times and all this kind of stuff. If we're able to have these types of services eventually in our region, then we will see that those types of things will be the pressure will probably let up a little bit. So.
Okay. I'm going to take one more comment and then I'm going to call the question.
It's actually a question. So this is the first time an accord has come in front of this body,
Yes.
and so what, and from folks' experience, what does an accord do? What does it help move forward? What could it be the impetus of? I think you're touching on that, and I'm curious about that. Right?
It's a partnership. So basically, it's actually Council Rabel, you mentioned that earlier. You mentioned something about a starting point.
Yeah.
That's all it is. What it does is it basically says that we have a problem. The solutions that we have taken to date have moved the problem forward maybe a little bit, but not enough. So now we want more brains in our table to get more perspective and learn more about how to tackle this problem from perspectives that we may not have thought about. That's the way I view accords, and the accords that I have worked with, that's how they have been.
And I want our perspective there, because I don't see it completely reflected here. That's my concern too. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of endorsing the NCLJ Mental Health and Addictions Accord?
Partially.
And that
You
is
can't have a partial.
that's unanimously carried. It leads its recommendation to Councillor Little.
Recommendation 2, that Subject to accord endorsement, council provides, approves Mayor Beach to attend on behalf of the village, Poos Koopy, for the 2024 Mental Health and Addiction Symposium in Prince George, November 13th and 14th, 2024.
Okay, I'll second that. There is money in the budget. We've already looked
That's my
into.
first question.
That's why I seconded it really fast.
I put it in there for everybody to read.
There is, so we managed to save almost $7,000 at UBCM.
Yes.
Because of frugal purchases.
Because of frugal purchases.
Frugal
And so
purchase.
because of our frugalness, there is actually room in the 2024 budget. So there is definitely room there.
Could roll over to next year.
I knew that was gonna be your first question, so I was like, just so you both know, we were so frugal at UBCM. We saved a very large amount of money, and it is less wiggle room. So there is room. I would be attending for the learning about the accord, the implications behind it, signing it on behalf of the village of Poos Koopy. I'm going to bring all that information back, and then really just there representing us at that table and beginning those conversations. Yes, Mr. Anderson.
And you've heard the dialogue around the table and some of the concerns from council. You can maybe get some answers to some questions.
I plan on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it gets approved, we have a vote.
Yeah. Councilor Rattle.
Well, as per page 18 of the agenda, though, we could endorse the accord but not have a representative and send them an email.
Yeah, if council wishes, there is definitely that.
Just noting.
But I'm just gonna let you know, if we send the email and I'm not there, then I don't have a voice at the table during the initial accord discussion.
Formulation of it.
Yes, that's the only thing. Councilor Whittle.
So I think it would be definitely, if we're gonna endorse this, especially due to the fact that we have north winds right within the community. We've already been down, we've already been advocating for this at UBCM, right? And we've already started the ball rolling on this. I think it would be asinine of us not to have somebody sitting at that table and putting our 2 cents in when we're one of the few places in the north that actually has a mental health and addictions facility. It would be absolutely stupid for us not to have somebody at the table. Hey, we've got the toys, but we got nobody here to talk about it. So, it's one of those things I really think, and don't get me wrong, I like the idea that we save some money, but at the end of the day, we're looking at a hotel room for 1, maybe 2 nights, which is like, $400 to $600 expense. Kilometers going down, which is a $400 expense, right? So, we're looking at, everything said and done, we're looking at a couple $1,000 for something that the ramifications and getting the ball rolling on this can have wide-reaching impacts for the north, or if not the entire province, because we've already seen and been told where the mental health and addiction model that they developed for the Peace Country has already been adapted and used elsewhere in the province, right?
Even though we don't have it really in
Even
place
though it
yet
isn't
in
completely
full
up and
scale.
running in our area, they took our model and ran with it, right?
And it's working elsewhere.
And it's working well. So I think we definitely need to be part of that conversation, especially after some of the comments that were made, when we were down at UBCM, when they were talking about policy. Well, is policy flying Poos Koopy? Well, how's the policy going to fly in Poos Koopy if Poos Koopy's not there to voice the opinion, right? So
I will also add that Terry from the NCLGA boards personally reached out to me, wondering if we had the meeting about it yet. I said that we had not. He has personally invited me down to the NCLGA. He wanted me to be present to speak on our community's collaboration with Northwinds. So I think there's a bit of a double edge there. From what I'm getting from Terry, they were quite impressed with what we and PRRD did, advocating for Northwinds to get the $4 million. And my understanding is that he would like us to really talk a little bit about the collaboration and us working as one united front and lobbying the government and being successful in a $4 million uplift for Northwinds. So just so you know. Yes.
I have 2 things. And the first one is, this area that NCLGA kind of serves and represents, how many facilities are there even? There's Prince George, there's To Be Us, and well, Farmington right now. And I can't really think of other ones.
Yeah.
Prince Rupert or so. Anyways, what I'm getting at is the point is there are very few. So
Very, very
admittedly,
few.
we are one of the few spots that have this. So it would be important to be there for it. But then the logistics question, this is the 13th and 14th. You're gonna get kind of ripped off on hotel rates, right?
Well, we were
Like, that's
looking
the
at
concern.
Airbnbs. I did look, you know me, I'm a big supporter of Airbnb, and actually the rates were very much the same.
As
So
long as the municipality opted out of Bill 40 or 44 or whatever.
I did joke about sleeping in a camper, and Miss McNair, did chuckle and say, well, you probably would, but, yeah, it looks like the rates are very comparable. We are looking at the Sandman, and it's about between 155 and 163 a night. And then we are looking at a couple of Airbnbs downtown, because I'm gonna be driving anyway, and they were around 163 to 175 a night. So it was very much the same. And so probably, like, we'll definitely go with whatever the cheapest option is. You know me, I'm not picky, I'll stay anywhere, so.
You can't sleep on the streets.
I was gonna sleep in a camp, I did
And
offer.
not downtown.
Yeah, especially not
Although-
downtown.
Although you get a first-hand look at mental health and addiction.
So there is an issue with you doing that. It's insurance problems for the municipality.
What, me sleeping in a camper? Yeah. I know, she was not sold on the idea either. I was like, I'll do it. It's like, I'll sleep in my
This would be
camper.
work related, yeah.
Yeah.
That's an insurance claim, it could be.
Yeah, it's Councilor Rattle.
At the end of the day, what's the ballpark on the total cost estimate?
I think what we're looking is about, it's between 1,500 and 2,200.
And that's well within the budget.
Yeah, that covers my mileage for driving and the hotel stay, and then, you know me, they provide food or I go grocery shopping because I'm boring. So, yeah. Either they're gonna feed me or the grocery store next door.
It sounds like in 1,000.
Sorry, if you're, no, that's all right. If you're getting a room for $150 a night, you're doing well. So,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, chances are, these people have canvassed certain hotels to.
Yes, yeah, there was a list.
There'll be a list of people getting preferred rates, so.
Well, there was 2 different Sandmans, a Ramada, there was about 6 of them, and they were all kind of within the same price range, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's well within our budget.
Yeah, my last piece is we're getting a facility, we might as well be there. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I'm gonna have to move my schedule around for the 13th and 14th. Since I hadn't moved it yet, 'cause I wasn't sure. All right, so moving on to number 10, correspondence.
The council receives the age-friendly community analysis for information and discussion.
Okay, seconder.
I'll second for information.
Okay. That's not how it works. So, seconded by Councilor Woodall. Councilor Babel?
Okay, so this was the work that was done when we had that open house in the seniors hall and whatnot as well. Essentially, we've identified what we've got, we've identified gaps in what we need to do. This will hopefully be put into our OCP. I have a bajillion questions from this, but
Really? You couldn't email them in?
well, I certainly can, but so for right now, this is essentially us saying we have received this information, and then we're going to put it into the OCP because there's a bunch of minutia here.
Adopt it, right? Or are we adopting this evening if council so sees fit?
Nope.
No, I didn't think so.
There's no adoption required. This is the very end of, even though it says draft on
I
it.
know, I was like, but it's.
It's not, the actual document does not say draft. I've got the actual document
Thank you.
without draft on it that I will leave a copy with all of you. It's the final document. There's no need to adopt. It was used as a resource in developing the OCP. The OCP had, for example, some census stats on there that didn't reflect the same numbers as here. We're going to make them sure they marry up. It was just a working document in putting together the OCP. Dennis and I had a conversation with Urban Systems who put this together, and the struggle was we just didn't get enough public input to get meaningful dialogue
The
going. But-
continuous issue, yeah.
But it is a requirement, we have to get this mailed in to Healthy Communities BC, who gave us the grant of $25,000 to produce this.
Yeah.
20,000 is in our bank account, and the remaining 5,000 is going to be given to us once we submit the final document. We've sent off this draft to them, they're happy with it, and we have to get it in before the end of the month. So we can't really, we're not
No
here.
rush, but just rush.
We gotta get it by the end of the month, get the last $5,000.
Yeah.
So it's not an amendable document, it's what it is right now, it's more for information, so.
Yes.
My thing is, this has good information. I don't want it to sit on a shelf. I want it to be action and implemented, and us to
We're gonna
essentially work
use
on the
it.
identified gaps. to
We're gonna
improve
use it to fight with the province to get seniors aging in place money.
And there's other things in here that we're gonna need, but I just don't want this to do nothing and collect dust, because we have a bunch of other old reports that do that.
I know.
I wanna
No,
see action on this.
no, and this will actually tie into some of our ECDEV stuff that
Yeah.
Mr. Stavro is working on. There's his look. He's got about 3 major plans that are going to be coming to us within the next 6 months. And you know, it's this information that he can help build a lot of those as well.
Yeah.
And more importantly, not that that's not important, this ties in really well to the strategic plan. So,
And the OC.
and the OC.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything for you, Councillor Whittle?
Nope, due to technical issues, I haven't had much of a chance to review
Yes.
the documents yet, so.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, recommendation 10.2, that council receive the correspondence from the RCMP police report for May 2024 as information.
Stay safe on the roads, they're very slick.
Can I get a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor Whittle, thank you. Yes. Again, we are seeing a lot of those decreases, but I think a lot of those decreases, as Councillor Wall had mentioned the last time, are due to changes in the drug policy. So I do see that we are seeing these large decreases, but part of that is due to those changes, I think.
Wasn't it how it's measured? Like if
Yeah.
it's a report versus if it results in
Yes.
an arrest or something?
I think it was something, Councillor Wall knew much more about it. Sadly, he is not here this evening, but I think it was something along those lines, yes. And yes, you are very correct, be very careful. It seems that motor vehicle collisions are definitely up. And this fits well with our core mental health issues are up by 16%. In this
Mental
year.
health calls.
Yeah, I've definitely gone up as well. Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Wonderful. Number 11, resolutions none, bylaws none, administration report 13.1 CAO report.
None.
Okay, well,
That
gloss
should,
over that.
remember we talked about
We
this.
talked to, yes, he did.
CAO report is none, we are
Moving
calling,
on to 13.1.
which is administrative
Which
reports.
I know, this gets me
13.2.
every time. 13.2. Okay. Recommendation that council approves a $673,716. I'm gonna re-say that. $673,716 increase to the Village Lagoon Stabilization Project for a project total of $3,005,440. And that the CAO be authorized to sign the amended disaster risk reduction climate adaptation funding agreement. Seconded by Councillor Rapp. Thank you. A mouthful.
Yes.
Questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Rapp.
It appears that we got that grant top-up that we were looking for.
We did, and I must say, a big thank you to Mr. Anderson,
Wow.
because he did a phenomenal job. He was on that like white on rice. And he worked so well with Urban Systems, so thank you so much. I actually told him we're building a monument,
Oh, jeez.
putting it in the middle
Not yet.
of the downtown core. Actually, I was gonna put it next to the
Do we have a statue? Do we have a statue?
We need to get a statue.
I did joke about putting the monument next to the lagoon, but that's a low blow.
Oh
Like,
my
No, I like that. I'm okay with
Overseeing
it.
it,
Yeah,
Oh, you could do a statue with one of those paddles that goes back and forth. If somebody
Beautiful.
can be a ship destroyer.
oh, beautiful. So, so this, as you had stated, Councillor Ravel, is completely grant funded, the entire $3 million project, with even the uplift was covered. Thank you to the hard work of Mr. Anderson and the urban system staff. We were one of the last people to receive for this intake. It's completely closed now, like for good.
It's donezo, yeah.
It's donezo. We were the last people to receive money from it. So, huge thank you to UBCM to see the importance to the community as well. Yeah.
But the essential summary of this work is the costs were reported that they increased. We asked the government for more money, and they supplied us with that money. Therefore, the taxpayer doesn't have to.
That's
the
right.
municipal level doesn't have to pay.
They are
for
getting
it.
a $3 million lagoon fix, and they don't have to pay for a penny of it. And that is such phenomenal news, because frankly, that's a big chunk out of the reserves of this community. So, Councilor Will?
I guess since we're on this topic, and since we got some money now, do we have an update on how far they made it, or for construction wise?
Yeah.
So, originally, the Ministry was only gonna let us work till the end of October. We appealed to them, they gave us a new order to let us work to the end of November. We had a meeting with the contractor. They say they have no problem working to the end of November, and they believe that the amount of work, which was 200 meters out of the 400 to build, they feel confident they're gonna get that done comfortably. They're hauling in, they're gonna haul in some aggregate, we're looking for a place to store some aggregate. We're gonna get hopefully all the work done, the 200 meters, and then the remaining 200 will be after the fish migration season, or whatever it is, in August.
Spawning season,
The
yeah.
remaining 200 meters, and the money, and all of the monies for extra work and remobilization is all built.
And we still plan to store some aggregate on site.
Yes.
And stuff, and then truck it in this year to reduce the cost for next year.
We're actually looking at, we're running out of space down there because they're stockpiling a bunch of things, it's pretty greasy, but, we're looking at private, land over into the industrial park that's neighboring the lagoons, to see if we can store some things there. So we've got some pretty good leads on a couple of properties we're interested in that, so. Nice.
Councilor Rebel?
Will we have to lease these properties?
There may be some rental costs, but they're well within the contingency allowance of what we're.
And still cheaper than trucking it in next year.
Yes, still cheaper than trucking it in.
Yeah, we're looking at substantially more. If we can tie the rate down this year, it goes up 10% for next year, as you know. So anything we can do this year, we're money in the bank, so.
So at the end of this project, if there is funds left over, did those go back to the province, or are we able to utilize those to further upgrades to the lagoon and like future proofing other portions of that?
Well, that's the next fun thing. Mr. Anderson.
So, as the mayor has indicated, this fund is no longer available. They've shut the program down. We were one of the last ones to get this. We're not sure what will happen with anything that's outstanding or remaining unspent. We're checking into that. We're getting confirmation because we're like you, we're thinking ahead of the game.
We're thinking ahead.
So I can't commit until we know.
Like the province, we fight enough for the province to give us money.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do is give money back.
Give them money back to them,
Well,
exactly.
we're looking into what we can do and what we can't do.
We have a really great asset management plan that's being done, that if we
Yes.
could, it would
Yeah.
fit perfectly.
We've got homes, homes for any extra money that might be sitting there, just whether or not they'll allow us to do it.
So they're checking it out.
And it's not counting our ducks before they hatch, because
No.
we don't know, you know.
Don't
We
get
don't
too
We
excited.
don't know yet.
But that's very exciting.
Yes.
There we go.
If I may,
Absolutely.
before we, thank you very much for the accolades, but I think you have to pat yourselves on the back for the work that you did at UBCM, because you obviously talked to the right people. After you came back, it started to rain and things started to happen. So I'd rather pat you folks on the back for the work that you did at UBCM to make this work. So.
I gotta say, this is our most successful UBCM yet. We got a lot.
We
Technically,
moved a lot forward.
technically,
It
just
paid for
this,
itself, didn't it?
we made $5 million. We made $4 million for Northwinds with the PRRD, and then an extra $1 million here. So it was.
So when people ask, what does that couple of grand do? It does this. So sometimes it works.
Sometimes it's pretty good, yes.
Okay.
You gotta be at the table.
You gotta,
Gotta be at the table, that's right.
90% of life is showing up.
All right, so, you're just looking for approval, right? Everything is,
Yeah, the recommendation as it sits there,
Okay.
we need a motion, Mayor, to, we've never recognized the new budget of the lagoon. We listened
Yeah.
to, we had.
and this is stated within the recommendation, you don't
That's
need a
correct.
further one?
So it recognizes the new total of $3 million, the council recognizes that, and you're giving me authority to sign the amendment agreement that comes with that extra money.
All right, I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor? And that is unanimous and carried. Moving on to recommendation number 2 then, that council approves sending a letter of appreciation to the UBCM Evaluation Committee for the funding uplift of the Water Treatment Lagoon Berm Stabilization Project. Can I need a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Woodall. Again, UBCM was, this is through them, and they,
So feds through EDCM?
I think, does it go,
It's federal money,
Mr. Anderson, is it funneled through to UBCM and then they select?
It's a UBCM administered
Ah, yeah.
through, from the province to
Yeah.
UBCM who funnels the funds to municipalities.
Yes. So this would just be really taking a moment to kind of spread the joy and appreciation and just really say thank you. Thank you for, recognizing the importance of this project to our community. Thank you for recognizing the importance of this project to our economical development as we continue.
I apologize. I thought it was federal. It appears as though it's
Provincial.
provincial funds.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I've been under that impression. But anywho's.
Okay, any other comments? All right, all those in favor? And that is carried. Wonderful. Action items. Oh, it's not on the digital agenda.
There's no updates of that, on that list.
Oh yeah, 'cause I didn't finish it, sorry. No,
Same thing with backlogs.
okay. We got, a lot of things are happening, but things are going really well. Our main focus has been the lagoon. We've been, all the staff, have been working their tails off on this lagoon. Urban Systems has been worried, this has really devoured the 2 months that Mr. Anderson has been here.
A reasonable portion of it.
He's a lagoon specialist at this point. Well, he's gonna be opening his own business pretty soon.
As long as we don't turn it into swimming.
As long as we don't turn it into
You can try.
All right, so, council calendars, the only big thing that's coming up is please do not forget about the Old Fashioned Christmas on November 22nd. And about November 11th, the ceremony taking place at, the Legion. Doors open at 10:30, and then the ceremony begins at 10:45. I do have a speech prepared on behalf of Village, and I will be speaking there as well. And I know that those folks, some of them new to the board, have been working their butts off, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. So, yeah. So those are the 2 big things, Old Fashioned Christmas and the Remembrance Day ceremony. Okay. Be there or be square. So there. Okay, moving on to reports. Councillor Johnson is sadly away sick with notice. Councillor Wall is away preparing Remembrance Day stuff with notice. So I wish them both the best this evening. So, Councillor Ravel, it's up to you.
Okie doke. It's as I mentioned last meeting, I'm now the treasurer of Coos Coupee Legion Branch number 54. So I've been working with the folks there on the Remembrance Day ceremony and a whole bunch of operational pieces and community pieces for the Legion. Different hat. But anyways, the November 11th ceremony, and there will be stew afterwards. Yay! And that'll be good. And then the Schnitzel night is happening this Friday, November 8th, as well. I think it's slated at 6, eh? I think that's usually when it's
Normally, yes.
Yeah, it's about 6. So it's $25. So that's happening this Friday. Other than that, I attended a library meeting, which the mayor also attended as well, and it was essentially discussing and continuing the discussions and the plan to utilize that grant to improve their spaces and get in STEAM and STEM supplies and educational materials and whatnot, and then also improvements, what to do with this, what to do with that, how do we best utilize the space, as with any space it can be limited. Other than that, there's been some other meetings, but they're very tangential. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Okay.
Councillor Will?
I have nothing to report. I have been flat out busy with work and I just haven't had time to reach out to the fire chief or to the detachment commander yet.
You've also started a new job, so you're up to your eyeballs. All right, moving on to me. Before I go, Mr. Stavro, you received my email with and it all came through well. I was on it. You see me? I was on it this time because I dropped the ball last time. All right, I've been very, very, very busy as usual. I attended the PRRD meeting on October 17th. I do have some things that I took away from that meeting. Hang on, let me just get those notes opened. And the report will be attached to the minutes if you could please, Mr. Stavro, when you're creating them. So on the October 17th meeting, a few things that popped out. So there's a new emergency services agreement that's being investigated with the PRRD between Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, Chetwynd, and Taylor. So this would be focused on community ESS and ESSD services with established regional teams. So that's going to be the difference. And there is interest in then reaching out and creating an overall established regional protective services team. Mm-hmm. So these are two new individual teams that are looking to be created. One is a subcommittee, which would do our ESS and ESSD, and then one that would be regional, and we could potentially be a part of that as well. So I'll keep you guys all informed on that. Second thing, the TC Energy Build Strong Community Grant. So this was a grant that was brought forward to the board for the PRD table. This grant supports wildfire protection and resources. I did note this grant and I passed it off to our fire chief, so he's investigating if we can actually use this to do more wildfire protection around the community. There was a designation of the Rural Fire Investigations and Inspectors, so they have received their official designation. So this recommendation would apply a designation to our fire chief as well as our deputy fire chief. This regional designation applies to our Pouce Coupe Fire Chief as well, which will not require any changes from us as a community, as he was already fulfilling this need in our community and in our fire protection area.
Sorry. Was that, sorry, did you say building inspection or something else?
So fire investigation and inspector.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Which after an incident, how did that start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he was already doing that. It's just now it's received an official designation. So our fire chief has received that. 10.1 from the PRD board was the Northwinds Wellness Center. So it was confirmed at the board table that through our joint effort, the PRRD and us, the Village of Pouce Coupe, were able to help Northwinds receive a $4 million that they needed to complete and fund the project. Yay! Big one of these.
Yes.
I would just like to make note, because I did receive a few phone calls after this meeting, that Northwinds would have continued construction and development even if they didn't receive the $4 million, but that it was going to lead to cuts to the construction and capacity due to the shortfall. So that it would have not shut down the project, but it would have made it so that they would have had to cut construction areas and some capacities. With the $4 million, no cuts are now needed, which is phenomenal because cuts are the last thing that we need. And lastly was the UBCM Working Community Works Fund. So this is, you guys are going to be seeing this coming this budget season. This used to be our gas tax. So when this pops up, if you're wondering what the heck this used to be our gas tax. I just wanted to note that as we're going into budget season.
So what are they calling it now?
It's called the UBCM Community Works Fund.
Oh, is that the deal with the southern
No, it's
communities that
just
didn't want to use
No, so what has happened is that they have broadened the scope of what your gas tax can cover. So in the past, it used to always go towards our paving. And now it's really broadened it for, paving, other, other capital projects within the.
Oh, okay, so they've opened up the scope of capital.
They've opened it, yeah. So it's actually a good thing. So that happened on October 17th. October 19th, I attended the Pouce Coupe Food Bank meeting. October 22nd, I attended the Northern Lights College Open House in Chetwynd on behalf of the PRD in my role as chair of the Healthcare Scholarship Committee. And it was so funny, I kept thinking I was going to see you there, and then I never did. It was super weird. I looked for you, though.
Thank you.
October 23rd, I attended the Broadband Internet and Mobility meeting within the PRD. They've got a bunch of different things going on, not a ton of movement, but definitely more people coming out of the pot when it comes to mobility and connectivity. So, you know, around here, as we all know, TELUS has had the monopoly for a long time, and more people are beginning to kind of sign on to connectivity and all that kind of stuff. So there's a few things coming out. October 24th, I attended the Northlands College Open House in Fort St. John on behalf of the PRD in my role as chair of the Healthcare Scholarship Committee. October 25th, I met with Adam from Ovintiv, and we discussed some upcoming projects in the community, as well as oil and gas happening around the area. I'm not sure if you've heard, but I have definitely received some complaints from some of our rural neighbors in Area D regarding some new CAD proposals that have come out. There's definitely some concerns from some community members out there that they reached out to me, as well as other members of the PRRD. And so just like what our Director Hebert of Area D did, I just kind of sat down with him and sort of advocated for some of those concerns that they are definitely having regarding this new CAD site and the vicinity it is to their homes. Yes?
Isn't that the intent of the Synergy Group?
Yes, and so that was one of the things.
Yeah.
So I passed on the information of the Synergy Group to this resident. So he is aware. And then I just passed on the information, his contact, to Adam as well.
Okay.
So that
That's Adam's piece too.
we can bridge that gap a little bit, yeah. October 26th, I volunteered at the Pouskabee Public Library for their pumpkin carving event. It was a huge success. They had over 30 kids come. I was covered in pumpkin from head to toe, but it was so much fun. A big thank you to Danielle and Courtney for hosting such a wonderful event. The kids loved it. They had a great time. We were carving pumpkins, and everybody was picking out all the parents. Like, kids were carving, parents picking out the seeds, taking them home. So we were handing out plastic bags and everything. It was a lot of fun. October 28th, I attended the PRD open house in Kelly Lake. This was a wonderful opportunity for me to connect with those in the community. I'd like to add that Councillor Wall was actually there as well, which was really, really cool. So not only did they have one Pouskabee, they had two. We were both there. So it was really, really neat. So October 29th, I attended the PRD open house that happened here in Pouskabee, which again, that's just really connecting with some of those rural area D residents. Because in my PRD hat, I do represent them as well. And then October 30th, I attended the Leaders Table in Fort St. John, and this is a table that is made up of all of our local elected officials and our First Nations. And then on November 1st, I was in the office on that day, just kind of working with staff, getting the agenda ready to go out for Friday. Now, I did bring one thing with me, which I will give. So remember when I mentioned a few weeks ago that we had a Northern Health meeting, and I wanted to get you guys the minutes? I got them. So we had Northern Health come as a delegation to the PRRD, and we talked a lot about, can you pass one to Mr. Scabro as well? We talked a lot about the hospital diversions, and I know that this is a huge question that you guys are getting a lot about.
Yeah.
So there are about 4 pages of questions that Northern Health answered. Take it home, take home an extra for Councillor Wall. Take it home, read it. It was a wonderful discussion that happened around the board table. Sadly, Chiro was unable to make it to this, but I felt that there was quite a few questions and concerns were brought forward by the board. So I did manage to get you guys a copy of them. And yes, check them out. Okay. All right. Then I can mark that off my to-do list. Yes.
You had the right people at the table because the vice president of clinical operations,
Yes.
Chapman, is kind of where the rubber hits the road for these issues.
Yeah.
So that's his bailiwick. So
We just love Churro so much when he doesn't show up, we all miss him. Well, it's really just me. I'm telling you, it's kind of my Christmas card.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's tons of reading. They asked a lot of questions. So feel free to take that back, and hopefully that can help you guys better advocate and answer questions for the public. Okay, and then if anybody would like to watch the actual video, it was the Committee of the Whole meeting from September 12th, 2024. So the video is on their website, so you're more than welcome to watch it. All right, question period none, in camera none, rise and report none. If I have no complaints, motion to adjourn, seconded and adjourned.